and then you take a snapshot of that. Once you have a snapshot of it, Scalr will automatically add a scalable database to it based on MySQL or any technology that you want. And it'll add a scalable load balancer as well. And it configures all of this to work together. So if you want to deploy very easily some infrastructure, a website or a web stack that you want to retain control over the infrastructure, being able to log into each individual server to make some tweaks or whatever it is, then Scalr is a good choice. The way it works is it has some scalability hooks. So when traffic comes in, and when traffic increases, Scalr will detect that via CPU increase or whatever. And it'll add more web servers to your cluster, and as traffic continues to increase, it'll add a MySQL slave, or as traffic continues to increase, it'll add a redundant load balancer, multiple websites, and even a caching server. The caching server, however, is not default because sometimes applications break because the headers are not set properly. So for all the geeks here are the details of how the project works. You have the Scalr kernel, which is represented by the brain here. And the brain polls your infrastructure for information. On each piece of, each server runs a little agent that is written in Python, very lightweight, and Scalr polls that for information, for example, disk I/O, network I/O, memory, CPU, and some custom scaling scripts that you have. And the polling works just by Scalr asking the infrastructure how it's doing, pulls that information, and stores it and runs some algorithms on it. Scalr does three things very well. One of them is auto-healing of services. So if, for example, the MySQL daemon crashes, Scalr would detect that. So here, if your web server dies, Scalr will pull it for information, won't get an answer, so it'll ask again a couple times until it times out. And then Scalr will send the replace command, which will either relaunch that process or replace the instance entirely. Scalr also does auto-configuration, notably of your relational database. So in this case here, you have to the left, you have a master database with the crown and two slave servers that are configured to replicate. And let's say, for example, that somehow Scalr pulls your database and discovers that your master database has died. The slave servers will tell Scalr that the master is no longer available. And what Scalr will do in this case will automatically take one of the slaves, promote it to master, configure replication with the other slave, and launch a new slave and configure replication with that. So if your master database dies in one of your shards, or if you only have one master, then it doesn't matter if it's at 4 a.m., you don't have to wake up, and this is done automatically for you. The last thing that Scalr does for you is automatic scaling based on the hooks I talked about, so CPU, memory, or what have you. But you also have you can also scale based on a custom script. So if you have a particular workflow or something, you can have a script that responds with -1, I'm very underutilized, shut me down, 0 or 1 if it needs to scale out. And it works basically, Scalr prompts the servers for load. They ask for help because they're overloaded, and Scalr will automatically add new nodes to this. Basically, Scalr is a tool to help you scale web infrastructure. And if you're working on an open source project that helps people scale their web stack, and if you're building tools to help people scale, come talk to me about integration and see how we can integrate your project into Scalr to offer more choice for scaling your web stack.